Hello everybody. Today let me introduce you the super map I planned for WebGL. And today let's get started with the WebGL. Okay, and so the WebGL is the method to display the 3D data in our web browser. So there is an overall process to display our 3D data in a web browser, and there have the four process. First is to preparation of 3D data. Is that to obtain our 3D data from the website or another way and process it in the supermap at desktop. Like to modify its projection or optimization data, or to generate the cache in the desktop. So generate the cache is it must be the last step of the data preparation. And then we could publish our cache to the 3D surveys. Publish our cache to the 3D surveys. And then let's build the engineering framework. And you should select the language. So what language and platform to write, and the instruction and the framework of the data you used. And then do the program development and the debugging. And then you can see your 3D data in the website. Okay, and then for the first step is that we have introduced you in our last class. In our previous course, and today let me introduce you from the two steps, the second steps. Okay, so the second step is to publish the workspace as the 3D surveys and the data surveys. So how to publish it, and how to choose these two surveys. So first, for the 3D surveys, it provides the various of the GIS operation on our spatial data in the data source, including query or do some another analysis, and query the models through the data surveys. So if you wanted to query the models through the data surveys, you should publish as a data surveys. So for the 3D surveys, if you wanted to publish the cache data in the scene for the web terminal, and to display to see the 3D data on the web page, just to see it, and you should publish the 3D surveys. Okay, that is if you just wanted to display your data in the website, you should publish the 3D surveys. If you wanted to query your data, you should publish the data surveys. And for the 3D surveys, there have the two methods to publish the service. The first is use the iDesktop to publish the service. That is in the tab of the Start, and there has the iDesktop online menu, and you could publish a server service and select the workspace and to log in and publish the workspace. Okay, so let's do this to publish the 3D service exercise. Okay, and that is how to log in your SuperMap as server. Okay, first let's open the SuperMap iDesktop and find the data. Let's find it in the Getting Started with WebGL and click Data, click CBD and click this cbd.sxw. That is the the cache that we have generated, and click cbd.sxw. And click the tab of the online and click workspace and select the the address that we have added. And if you don't have, you can click the new connection and to insert your username and your password. So for this username and password is your server's username and password. And if you don't have the username, and you could wait and to use the method 2 to publish it. Okay, so I select the address that I have edited and select the 3D service. We have mentioned it that we published the 3D service is that we wanted to display our 3D data. Or you could just select another service in this list and click publish, and you could publish your server service. That is our first method to publish the service. And then let's look at our next method to publish the service, the second method, to use a server to publish the service that we often used. So to use a server, you must to download the server and compress it and start the server service and visit the local host 8090 8090 and to log in and to sign up your account and to log in and quickly publish one or a group of the service. And let's look at the second two, how to do the second method. So first, let's find the server, and then you should compress your server and just compress it, and then open your server. So we will give you a minute to compress it, and then open the server. folder and find the bin, and find that is startup.bat. So you set startup.bat, you can start up your iServer and use shutdown.bat. And there, use the shutdown.bat, you can shut down your iServer. So if you wanted to open your iServer, click the startup. If you wanted to close your iServer, click this shutdown. Okay, let's click startup.bat, and then it will appear this window, this CMD window, and let's wait a minute. Wait, it's open the iServer. Okay, so when your iServer is finished to start up, don't close this CMD window. Yeah, pay attention to it. Don't close your CMD window. Don't close this black window. Okay, we should to remain this window to open, and it will start up your iServer. Okay, when it appears that server startup in some MS, in some MS, and that is successfully start up. Okay, if your CMD window, if your this window appeared to the startup in blah 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 MS, and it's successfully completed, started up. And then let's open our browser. Open the browser and tap the localhost. Localhost colon 8090. Look at it. Localhost colon 8090. Okay, click it and click enter. And if you are first to visit this website, you should sign up to input your username and input your password. Okay, and that is in Chinese, and I will modify it in English. Okay, if you have some question, and please feel free to type it in the chat box. Okay, and we will solve it. We will answer you in the chat box. So if you have some question in the startup your iServer. Okay, and then let's look at if you have appeared this page that you're successfully open this. Okay, and then let's publish our CBD, publish our data. Okay, let's click the this service. We can see it's so many surveys that we can publish, like this 3D surveys. We could publish the 3D surveys or the data surveys, and if you have the 2D data, you can publish as a map surveys, or if you wanted to do some spatial analysis, you can publish the spatial analysis surveys. Okay, and then let's click manager. Click manager, and there have the quickly publish surveys button. Click the quickly publish surveys button, and it will promote you to publish the workspace, and let's select the workspace. Okay, and if you have another surveys like the REST map surveys or the REST data surveys, you could select it, and you could also publish this ArcGIS REST map surveys or the Bing map surveys or Google map surveys. Okay, let's select the workspace and click next, and click the remote browse, and find our not in there CD, and find our data, find our CBD data, and find cbd.sxwu. Find the cbd.sxwu. Okay, click next. And then let's find the surveys. Let's select the surveys. I'm gonna to select the REST 3D surveys and the REST data surveys. That we wanted to display our data in the browser, and click next, and click the editable, and click next, and then click finish to publish the service. And it appears that it's successfully completed. Publish the CBD workspace as a service, and click close. Okay, and then let's click manage service instance. Click the manage service instance, and find the 3D service. We could see there is a CBD service that I have published it. CBD3 service, and in the data service we have the CBD data. Okay, and we have successfully published our surveys. So how to browse our surveys in the browser? You could click the CBD surveys in the 3D surveys. Click the CBD. And then click the service address. Click the service address. Then click the real space. Click the scene, and click the WebGL 3D. Okay, and let's wait a minute. You could see we have to look at our CBD data in the web browser. You can feel it that we do some data preparation in the Supermap at desktop, and we can browse it in our website. Okay, maybe because the internet is a little slow. Okay, and then let's come back to the PowerPoint. Okay, that is process to publish our service is to start our iServer service and visit the local host 8090 and as server manager to log in and quickly publish the one or group of surveys. It's just to click this quickly to publish a service and select the 3D service and the data service. Okay, and we could see our service address. So in order to for the data service, that is the data and your workspace name, and for the 3D service, that is a 3D and your workspace name. And if you publish the map service, is that the map and your workspace. So that's a service access address. And the URL address required for the WebGL pluginless client development. So for the 3D scene, and you could to publish a 3D service, and this address is localhost 8090 iServer service and the 3D service, and the rest real space. So if you wanted to add your address to your code, you should add this address to your code. And for the oblique photography and model and beam and vector data, and that is a 3D layer data service. So for this data, you should to add this as a real space and data and your layer name and config. Okay, for this data, you should add this address to your code. And for the terrain image data, you should add the 3D surveys and rest, real space and data and layer name. You should add this code as this address to your code. So for this, and I will introduce you in the next class. And the next class, I will with you to add this multiple data to the website. Okay, so that is the config file, and let's look at where is the config file. Okay, let's find our exercise and to in the real space. Okay, let's go back to the nodes of the real space and click the data and find the layer name. Like we could find the building CBD, and click this get configuration file of the 3D data. So that is our config file, includes some latitude and longitude of our data. So if you wanted to add some If you wanted to add some oblique photograph or model or BIM or vector data, you should add this address to your code. Okay, so that is a way to find our config file. Okay, so that is a service update. So maybe you are a little confused. If you modified your workspace, so you could not modify, you could not to publish your service again, and you just to modify your workspace, and your iServer will automatic update the service. So you just to replace the source file directly, and iServer will automatic update the service. That is a really nice function of the iServer. You don't need to publish your service again. Okay, so that is our exercise to release a 3D scene. Okay, so I have given you the sgns.sxw, and then let's publish this 3D scene again and release. Publish this 3D scene as a 3D service and get a 3D scene service address. So let's do this exercise. Okay, and then let's open our browser, and to do again to publish the service. Let's click the quickly publish service and select the workspace and select the remote browse, and in the data we could select the sgns and sgns.sxw and click next, and published as a 3D service. Click the rest of 3D service and click next, finish. We can see it's published as a 3D SGNS service, and click close. Okay, and then let's get the 3D scene service address. Click the manage service instances. Click this and find in the 3D service and find our 3D SGNS. Okay, and let's find the scene address. Okay, if you have found the scene address, you can type it to our chat box. Okay, and let's look at who is first to send it in the chat box. And then let's click the localhost address and find in the real space. Okay, so for the 3D scene, we just use this in our workspace. We can only use this in our workspace. Use this address in our workspace. Okay, so that is our first exercise. To publish our sgns.sw workspace as a 3D service and get a 3D scene service address. Okay, and then let's look at the WebGL development kit resource. So if you wanted to obtain from the iClient folder, you can obtain from the iClient folder under the iServer decompression directory, or you could to download it in the Supermap Technique resource center downloaded. So let's look at. So first, you can let's click the folder of the path of the iServer. Click the folder of the iServer. For the WebGL, you can click this client. For 3D, that is our WebGL folder and WebGL. Then click EN. EN is for English. ZH is for Chinese. Click EN. Sorry, my ass is a little. Click EN and find it in the examples. Oh yeah, just click EN, and that is a folder of our iClient. So that is our development kit resource. And the development kit script library is in the build folder. Let's look at the build. Click the build folder, and there have the system. So our important directory is in the system.js. That's our important code. Is the system.js. So we should add this JavaScript file in our code. And the demonstration procedure. So the source code is convenient for the developers to quickly build applications. And let's look at this is and I have give you guys the code. I have give you guys the code in our data file, and let's open it. I have copied the file that you needed. That is a build and CSS and GS and the GS. So that's all the files that you must use. And if you wanted to make your own new project, you should modify this. You should modify the GS in this GS, and find the main.js and open it and use Visual Studio. Okay, so we have adjusted. So if you wanted to make your own project, you should modify this main.js. So where is this main.js? That is in this in the EN and find in the examples. And WebGL, there have the GS. There also have the main.js. Okay, let's look at these two files. So we could see we must to modify is a relative path of the system. So we must to modify is a path and delete this dot. Yeah, to modify it. That is a relative path. So that is if you wanted to do a new project, you should modify its main.js. Okay, so I have I have preparation this field that we must do, that we will have. Okay, and let's look at. So this is the field that we must use. It's a build, and the examples, the GS and the CSS is in these examples. And then we must create the home page, the index.html, to integrating the demonstration programs, and the reference instruction and the spatial technique documents. Okay, and then that is some online examples in there, and we can look at these online examples. Okay, let's the online examples is in the. Okay, so let's copy this link. Copy this link, and in our browser, support.supermap.com.cn, column 8090. Okay, and we will send it to the chat box. I will send it to the chat box. Our TA will send it to the chat box. Okay, and that is in Chinese. Okay, I have modified it as in English. And that is our example, and we can see some example in this website, like if we wanna to to display our data, we can we can click this as 3M tells, and click this source code to look at how to do it. So if you wanna to appear some function, you can use this website to find that function. Okay, and then the WebGL online API documentation, that is also important website in your project. So let's look at this WebGL online API. And we can just to click this iClient 3D WebGL and click this API, and it will appear this API. And we can find that some API that we wanted to use. Okay, so what is the structure of our WebGL object? Let's look at this WebGL object structure. So the most basic class is a viewer, and the viewer is a basic component used to build the complete applications, and the entry point for the development. And this is an organization chart, organization structure. First of all, there is a scene object that is we often used, and based on the scene object, we can add this corresponding data. For example, for the primitives, it can add some model or some dynamic layer, or some model, or some geographic object dynamic layer, S3M data, and the primitive data or the model data use the primitives. And for the terrain provider, you can add a terrain data. And for the image gray layers, you can add some images, and all of which are added to the viewer through this scene node. And for the entity, it mainly loads the sketch objects, whereas very similar to the primitives. And the difference is that the entity has a more higher degree of the primitives, which is directly added to the viewer to display. And for the info box is a message pop-up window, which can display the message directly in the scene. And the camera objects provides the camera's perspective and finds a suitable perspective for the observer to browse the data. And the data source collection is a collection of the data source, which can be divided into 3 tabs: the CZML data source, and KML data source, and GeoJSON data source. The 3 types of the asking press can be added to the viewer to display. So that is KM data source. So that is Rosley structure of the WebGL. And let's look at the API documentation. Okay, and then let's do our second exercise with 3D scene online. Is that achieved using a browser to access the 3D scene published by yourself. So first step is to create the project and to add a script library. So we all need an element to carry them, and use the div tag to give him an ID as our loading container. And then the second step is as a loading container for the 3D scene. And then after the code, we edited the code, we should put the project in the web apps code directory, and then start the app server and publish a project, and pass the corresponding address access the scene. So we should open the 3D scene and published object by add our folder to the web apps directory. Okay, and then let's look at how to write our code. And so I will first introduce you the whole process first, and then I'm going to do it to write this code with you. And let's together to write this code. Okay, so first, the first step is to add a script library, and I have introduced it to you. Our reference script library is build folder. So first we should project the folder and copy the build folder and the GS and CSS folder in the example from the WebGL installation directory to the project folder, and then modify the code in the main.js as shown in this red font below. And we have modified it to you, so you could you could not do everything for this step. That's just, when you want to create the new project folder, when you create the new project, you should do this step. And this step, I have do it for you. Okay, and then you should create the index.html file in the project folder, and then write the code and add the title and script library reference. Okay, so as a link CSS, the WO as a CSS and as a main.js. Okay, and then you should give their an ID here by using the div. Okay, so you should add the loading container for the 3D scene. First step is add the div elements, give them the ID, and give them some styles like the width 100% and height 100%, and then create a system viewer instance. Create the viewer instance. Create the script elements and set it a tab, and create the viewer instance through the viewer object. Use the var viewer. Okay, and then create the corresponding viewer instance by passing the ID of the corresponding loading container. So we should add a function and as a viewer equals new system.viewer system container. That is creating the viewer instance by user ID to loading this container. Use loading this ID, and then we should add the scene. So after we creation the container, we could open the 3D scene under the added address by obtaining the scene object of the viewer.scene and passing in the corresponding scene address through the scene.open method. And we can see that this address is a scene under the real space that I have introduced you. Is under the real space node. And after we write the code, we need to put this folder to the web apps after saving, and then we can publish it through the Tomcat that comes with the iServer. Then after starting the iServer successfully, you can pass the corresponding address. Okay, that is a web apps published function. And then you can use this link to open your project. Okay, and then let's do our exercise 2. Okay, so let's do our exercise 2. First of all, let's open this hello world, and in this hello world there have the index simple that I have give you. We can open it as Visual Studio Code, and we can see that is code, and I have give you. Okay, and then let's create a new code. right click it and create the test and modify its name as the index. Modified its index.html and open it in this Visual Studio Code. And then let's add it. Let's add its and let's add a frame of the HTML. Okay, so first let's add the frame of this. So first it's this, and as a HTML element. Okay, and then let's add this metadata elements in the head elements, and then let's add the title. Add its title and modify its name to the Open 3D scene. Okay, that's our framework of our project. And then let's add a link as a CSS and this two CSS file, and as this main.js, this JavaScript file. This step is to add a script file in our project, and that is a script library. It uses a secondary library, use a relative library, and so before it we should modify the main.js. And okay, and then let's add this div. Add this div and add this to give it ID and the style. Okay, and then let's add its ID in the body element. And then let's add the div, and as the ID, it's system container, and add its style as wise 100% and height 100%. Finished it. And then let's add the script to as a viewer. As a script and add this tab as a text for JavaScript. Okay, and then let's And after after the frame is complete, let's create the system viewer instance through the viewer object. Okay, and then let's add the viewer. Then let's add a function. Named system. Okay. And create the corresponding viewer instance by passing in the ID system container of the corresponding loading container. Okay, let's add it. As a viewer, new system dot viewer. System CSIUM system dot viewer. System dot viewer. And it's corresponds ID. It corresponds a system container. Okay. And then let's open the 3D scene under the edit address by obtain the scene objects of the viewer.scene. And okay, use this viewer.scene to open the 3D scene. And passing the corresponding scene address through the scene.open method to open the scene. Scene.open and add our address. So our address is in the let's select the service and select the service management. Okay, whatever method you do, you just to select the service management and select the 3D service. Now let's open the 3D CBD service. In this exercise, maybe we will use okay. And in this exercise, we will use the SGNS. Okay, let's find the SGNS that we have published it. uses SGNS and click its address and select the real space. So we will use this URL in our scene.open. Okay, and then we can see it in the scene and see if is this successfully in the WebGL. Is it successfully appear in our WebGL? Yeah, it's successfully in our WebGL. And then let's finish our project and save it. Fail to save it. And then let's copy it to our web apps folder. Okay, so let's close and copy this hello world. Copy this hello world in the WebGL folder. It's in our installation directory of the iServer, and click the web apps. There have many hello world, and I'm going to add it to paste it in this web apps folder. And then let's click our browser, and then to tap this address, the localhost 8089 and hello world index.html. Okay, let's open it. Localhost 8090 and hello world. Hello world index.html. That must be corresponding, must be matched your HTML file. And let's look at it. Is it successfully in our web browser? Oh, that is shows it have some error. And let's look at what's the error. System.viewer is not okay, and let's come back and check our code. Okay, that is in this. Oh, this V is upper V. Okay, and let's look at, is it worked? Yeah, it's successfully appeared in our browser. So it's successfully appeared. Yeah, that is the mountain in the China, and it includes a tree and the road. So you could to tap it by yourself, or you can represent this Adasta simple to write your code. Okay, so today's class is finished, and if you have any problems, feel free to tell us. Okay, thank you.